Welcome to CISO's Insiders Podcast, powered by GRC Consulting. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing leading CISOs and security leaders in the industry for light, eye-level conversations. Here, they share advice and tips, talk about their biggest accomplishments and failures, favorite drinks, key influencers, and much more. We encourage you to walk away with at least one insight that will help you better yourself or your business. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more content, please check us out on social media.
And welcome, everybody. Today, I'll be speaking with Andrew Nuxoll. Andrew is the current CISO of, Director of Infrastructure Operations and Cybersecurity over at UNICEF USA. Going over your bio, Andrew, I see that you come from an operational background, I think, a bit of infrastructure, IT, and operations. If you could, step in, introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure, thanks, Ben. Again, Andrew Nuxoll. I'm the Senior Director of Infrastructure Operations and Cybersecurity at UNICEF USA. Like you said, I've been all around IT, started mainly as a system technician and grew my career doing a lot of different things, network administration, but been in and around cybersecurity for around 25 years, and it's what I'm most passionate about.
Okay, got it. Thank you. But you transitioned full-time to cybersecurity just in this recent role, or even before that?
No, I've been in cybersecurity specifically for probably around 10 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, working in roles that were heavily linked to risk compliance and cybersecurity as well.
Okay, thank you. The podcast, as I've mentioned in our preliminary call, is basically our way of creating content, learning more about the industry, learning about the individuals that drive the industry. So we'll be focusing mostly about you and your journey here. I always like to start off with a couple of icebreaker questions. If you could share your marital status and favorite drink.
Sure. I'm happily married. I have 3 stepkids, 4 grandkids, and fortunate to be married to my best friend. My favorite drink, generally speaking, is beer. And of the beer styles, Hefeweizen. I'm a huge fan of Hefeweizen.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I know this one. It sounds German. I imagine
it's a wheat-based. Wheat beer.
Yeah, got it. Okay, great. Let's dive right in. If there's one thing you wish you'd known when you began your career, what would that be?
It's hard to narrow it down to just one thing. So if you'll humor me, I'll mention a few things. The first one is that along the journey, title doesn't matter unless you're looking for a new job. So, what the work that you're doing is what is important, not what name is assigned to you. The second, I would say, is the importance of soft skills versus technical knowledge. There's a need for both, but without having at least some of both, you're going to struggle to be successful. You can't be, have terrible communication skills and interpersonal skills and succeed in your career. You need to have that side of things too. Next, I'd say it's inevitable that you fail at certain times in your career. It happens. If you do, you have to learn to fail fast, learn from your mistakes, and move on. And then finally, I would say, probably most important, there's always almost always more than one correct way to do things. So there's the Microsoft answer for those that are certification nerds, and then the practical answer. And a lot of times both are right, if not other solutions.
Okay, and thank you for that. And I know you mentioned soft skills, and I know this topic comes up a lot in my conversations, I have to say. And I keep wondering, is this, in your opinion, do you think that was a trait of the old guard, the old generation, of not having those honed soft skills as opposed to later generations?
I think that it was more prevalent in the past because there were fewer people that had technical expertise in a given area, and it might be easier for them to get away with not having as many soft skills. I've known a lot of people that were absolutely brilliant, could solve nearly any technical problem that you brought them, and you just couldn't do it in a pleasing, pleasant, customer-focused way. And inevitably, most of those people struggled to advance in their career because soft skills are just so important, and you need to have a well-rounded, skill set to be able to keep moving forward.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, and you touched a bit about failing fast, failing small. I think you said. What can you say was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I think I've had plenty of them, but the one particular thing that sticks out to me was there was an organization that reached out to me several years ago and offered an opportunity, and they had a terrible reputation in terms of their IT culture, and I was arrogant enough to think that my personality would fit with anyone. I could go in there and really initiate some change and be successful there. And I got there and quickly realized that wasn't the case. It just wasn't the right place for me. But so I would say that my arrogance in that regard and immaturity really led to me failing at a minimum in making a poor decision, and it set my career back. I was on a pretty good path, and they lured me away, and it kind of derailed things for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would you say your biggest accomplishment was?
I would say my greatest accomplishment is just the relationships I've built, the people I've been able to develop a camaraderie with, and in some cases been able to help others grow their career. And make no mistake about it, I didn't get here on my own. I needed the help of others, and many people have been instrumental in my career growth, and so I'm very appreciative for that, and humbled by the fact that others have been so supportive and helpful to me. There's a outstanding community of people out there that support one another. I think in our industry, it's really a small world. There are a lot of people that you'll cross paths with repeatedly, and I've been fortunate to meet some really good ones. So, a mentor of mine once said that a good leader builds up leaders around them, and I've been fortunate to have some good leaders, and I try to be the same myself and help build people up around me as well. So, just the relationships I've built and the camaraderie has been my greatest accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there one piece of advice that you wanted to give out to the younger security professionals out there that want to pursue careers that would be similar to yours?
Yeah, I'd say the overarching comment I'd have on that is be nice, work hard, and learn from everything. If you can treat people well and be supportive of them, they'll reciprocate. Work hard, keep your nose down when times are tough, keep going, ask for help from the people that you've developed those relationships with, and work through it, and never stop learning. I try to make it a priority to research something and look into our landscape and the things that are going around throughout the industry on a daily basis, and it's definitely beneficial and helps keep you sharp, and you learn a lot just by persistently researching things.
Mm-hmm. Let's try to unpack this just a bit more, if that's possible. So I know you mentioned that one of your biggest accomplishments was the network that you've put in place, and the sort of relationships that have been developed over the years. And I know you also mentioned leaders, good leaders surround themselves with other leaders, and can grow other leaders. Anything you can say about that? Like if you want to really succeed, is there like anyone in particular that you think that the young security professionals should glue themselves to in order to really succeed?
Well, I would say seek out mentorship. Be forward enough and open enough to let people know what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish, and find a mentor. Look on LinkedIn, social media, find someone that's willing to help you. Post out there, hey, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's where I am in my career. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help. So it's very valuable. I have a mentor myself right now. I have at most every stage throughout my professional career. And in turn, when you learn things, you can mentor someone at almost any level. And there's advantages for both sides. As a mentor, I learn things from mentees, and I hope that my mentor learns from me as well.
I think that's a good piece of advice there. And, talking a bit about the role of the CISO, I know in some organizations, the CISO is a part of the IT organizations. In others, it is not a part of the IT. What are your feelings and thoughts about, placing the CISO as part of the IT organizations?
I think ideally it's not, but you have to keep in mind every organization is different. So I think it corresponds to a few things. How well aligned is your leadership and your organization with the needs of risk and cybersecurity? In a smaller, well-aligned organization, I don't think it's as critical that the CISO report outside of IT. In a larger or more regulated, less aligned organization, I think it's critical that it report outside. I've heard a number of your guests say the same thing. There can be some significant conflicts of interest if the CISO reports into IT, and you definitely want to avoid that, especially when there might be regulation involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think, talking a bit more about your career and all the years of expertise that you have, do you have any specific tips or like anything you wanted to share about the resources that you've been using in order to keep growing, keep learning, keep, better educating yourself?
I use anything I can find. You can find a lot of information on social media. I get a lot of information just from articles that my colleagues post on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people follow Twitter. I'm not as active there. Reddit has a ton of threads that you can find some great practical and technical advice as well. The biggest thing I would say is get out there and network and get involved with organizations, whether they're affiliated with the certifications that you may have, or just support the industry in general. So among those, I know ISACA and ISC both have organizations that are aligned with them, where you can meet some great people and learn a lot of things. For your users or listeners that are US based, InfraGuard is an organization that I've been involved with for quite a while. I was formerly a sector chief for the Cincinnati chapter for IT, but they're aligned with the FBI and have a lot of great bulletins and opportunities to learn not just about IT in general, but many different sectors of industry that might be relevant to risk, cybersecurity, and overall compliance.
Yeah. And, sometimes you struggle, though, to identify which organization you want to be aligned with, because there are so many of them out there, right? As you mentioned, ISACA and ISC score just like two examples out of probably dozens.
Yeah, and they're fairly diverse and different. I mean, the information that you get from one of those is going to be different from the other. So depending upon your role and your interests and your passions, try a few of them and stick with the ones that are most relevant to you.
Yeah. Is there one common myth about this industry that you wanted to debunk?
Yeah, my myth would be that cybersecurity is a technical or cybersecurity is something that can be solved with technical means. It can be helped through technical means, but it's largely a people problem. It's uneducated, unaware, complacent users are 95% of the time the root of any security issue that you'll find in an organization. So you can trace almost any of the mainstream breaches that you read about back to someone's negligence, carelessness, ignorance, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, hacking is a thing, but rarely are you going to find a hacker that successfully bypassed good security controls and safe security practices to make anything happen. It's almost always because someone made a mistake.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say ignorance, I'm assuming you mean lack of awareness around cybersecurity.
Oh yeah, not saying it in a demeaning or insulting way at all. It's just not knowing what you're getting yourself into or being unaware of what you're doing.
Got it. Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that I understood correctly. Okay, now in your opinion, what are the main concerns that CISOs nowadays should have in general, not speaking specifically about your industry or your company?
Yeah, there's so many. You could highlight any particular threat and find a reason that it's a big deal, and it's going to vary from organization to organization. But overall, I would say that resource availability and personnel and how you address needs of staying up to date with staffing and considerations that are related to that is one part. And the second part, again, goes back to a lack of awareness or complacency. People just not giving the appropriate focus to potential threats, being unaware of potential dangers that are out there. And it extends. There's, if you get to more technical resources, complacency can manifest itself in, I'm borrowing a term from my wife who worked in telehealth for quite a while, but alarm fatigue was something that they brought up a lot of time. And, a patient would hit a button because they didn't feel good, and a nurse would go and respond. And after that happens a certain number of times, the nurse, inevitably got less and less concerned and didn't show the sense of urgency that they may have shown the first several times that the button was pushed. And it happens with monitoring and security as well, and risk. And you see the same thing over and over. And oh well, we didn't get dinged on this in the past, so maybe it's not as important as we thought. Or you build a rule that says I'm going to just ignore this type of alert, and later down the road it gets you. So you have to be vigilant and stay aware and alert for the dangers that are out there.
In your opinion, Andrew, what do you think are the most important skills that CISOs nowadays should have?
I think that, echoing what I've heard other guests of yours mention, Ben, is an understanding of the business they support and communication to let others know the role that they're playing and how to protect themselves. You have to have an awareness of the underlying technology and the threat landscape and be able to discuss that at a practical level with the people that you're supporting and up to other levels of leadership and the board. If you can't put it in terms that the business understands, it puts you at a significant disadvantage. And I think that's one of the limiting factors, circling back to a question that you had earlier about, should the CISO have a role in IT or should it report elsewhere? You have to be able to speak across all of those different arenas and different levels. And so understanding the business and being able to put the challenges that you're facing in terms that the business will understand is key.
And, a follow-up question on that. In your opinion, is this like an evolving requirement? Is this an evolution? Is this a transition? Like, looking at yourself, for example, and considering your role, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, do you see that there's a difference between now and then in terms of the skills that a CISO should have?
There's a lot of difference. I think to a degree, security 10 years ago was more niche than it is now. People have finally, over the past several years, started to embrace the fact that it needs to be present throughout your organization. So a good example of that is, it used to be called DevOps, now DevSecOps. Finally, people are getting that, hey, maybe security is something we should consider throughout the life cycle of the project. So I would say that, yeah, there's definitely been evolution, the same way as we were talking earlier about how soft skills weren't as requisite as they are now. I think the same is true with the skills that are expected, the CISO role going forward. We need to evolve. I don't think that the business was as much of a consideration, or maybe vice versa. Maybe the business didn't care as much about security. Now you start to hear the stories of how it really affects businesses, and businesses that legit go out of business because of a ransomware attack or a security breach or some other sort of event. So yeah, it definitely is evolved.
Mm-hmm. And talking about evolution and where this role is going, in your opinion, what would we see in the future of the CISO role, like 5 years, 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an enigma right now. I think the vCISO role or fractional CISOs are probably going to become much more popular, especially at smaller companies, because what you see is the larger, more regulated companies and those with a lot of money to spend, they're going to demand a CISO with a combination of all the requisite skills to get a job done, and it costs a lot of money, as you know. A full-time CISO for a Fortune 500 company commands a massive salary. Smaller, less mature, or less structured company is going to get somebody that is not quite as advanced as the others, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. It's just to say that, a lot of people are going to look at me and say, you aren't a CISO. I don't know how you can even speak on this in an educated manner, but I'm self-aware. I get it. I'm sure you've heard of, and many of your listeners have heard of, the pick 2 of 3 dilemma when it comes to project management or code development, where they say, here's a project. You can have 2 of 3. It can either be good quality, we can deliver it fast, or it can be cheap. Pick 2 of 3. The same's going to happen for CISOs. They're going to say, okay, all the good CISOs, or the most qualified, high-profile CISOs are already out there. What's most important to you? You can pick 2 of 3. You can either get one that understands your business and the industry that you're working in. You can get one that is proficient in terms of technology and risk, or you can get one that's cheap. Pick 2 of 3. So I think that's where we're heading for full-time CISOs, and the way that a lot of companies are already starting to address that is with the vCISO.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on the vCISO part, especially now when we're seeing a slight downturn in the market. I do agree that for the smaller organizations, the tech companies, the startups would probably go down that path, if not hiring a full-time CISO, but rather, getting the benefits of hiring a virtual CISO or a fractional CISO. And talking a bit more about the industry and trends, what do you think that we will see in the cybersecurity world next?
I think it's going to be a continuation of many of the trends that we're seeing now. So along with the more common usage of a fractional CISO or a vCISO, we're going to see a greater consumption of X as a service, whether it be security as a service, SOC as a service, et cetera, because that's driven by the overall lack or perceived lack of available cybersecurity resources. There's, as I know you've spoken about in the past with many of your guests, not sure how real it is, but there's so many jobs out there that have such high demands for an entry-level security resource they're never going to be able to fill all the jobs. So you have a couple options. You can either be realistic about the people that you're hiring or offering jobs to, build a foundational layer of cybersecurity professionals that grow and mature into effective cybersecurity practitioners, or you can partner with a third-party service. Neither one of these is a bad idea. The bad idea is not hiring anyone because you put too restrictive of a job description out there to get an entry-level resource. The good ideas are either start hiring more people and training them and giving them the opportunity to grow, or partner with a company that's going to come in and do that work for you.
Yeah, I agree on that as well. And looking at again a bit more about the industry in terms of budget planning, did you see a shift of some sort since like pre-COVID, post-COVID world?
Ours has been fairly level from an overall budget perspective. That said, the big difference now is how open leadership and board members are to discussing, evolution of a cybersecurity program or risk program. So in the past where, a number may have been enough to make people backpedal or avoid a conversation around enhancements to a cybersecurity program, not much is off the table now. You can make a case and justify at least having a discussion and talking about usage of budget on more expensive items or tasks to evolve your cybersecurity posture.
Yeah, because I think, social media and media as a whole has a big role in that, because it's a much more, as you said, it's much more, out there right now. It's much more communicated, like recent breaches, attacks, the potential damage. So I think that does provide some kind of a service to the CISOs out there, because they're better able to really communicate the actual and real life risks that might happen.
Sure.
What would you define as innovation in our space? Is it more along the lines of like a new product, new service, or is it like new practices?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. As you know, security and risk are moving targets, and you have to be able to pivot and adjust, keep them in focus. So you have to remember cybersecurity is not prescriptive. So you can't say, hey, we're worried about phishing and we're going to buy this product and it's going to take care of it. It's just not how it works. A salesperson might try to convince you that. A vendor might say, oh, you buy this product and it's going to solve your security problem in vector X, but that's just not how it works. So the analogy that I have thought about here recently is, you can really correlate or compare the pandemic to cybersecurity. And I say that from this perspective, not trying to take a stance on whether or not people should get vaccinated or how people should handle their own lives. But, the pandemic hits, healthcare experts identify the potential issue. And in today's world, that's the equivalent of a 0-day. So the world scrambles, they come up with a vaccine. That takes a lot of time. That's the equivalent of releasing a service pack. Hey, we found this big thing that, we're going to put out there. It's going to help. In the meantime, the virus mutates. And so now the vaccine's less effective. So you have to come back and come up with the second dose or a booster shot. That's the equivalent of your patch that's applied to the service pack that just came out. And so you can kind of see where this is going. The virus is going to continue to mutate. It's going to try to continue to replicate and survive. And the world is going to constantly try to keep up. And the hackers and threat actors are the same way. They see the holes closing and they adjust to find a new vulnerability. So here's where it really gets scary to me. We can have all the research experts coming up with this fail-safe vaccine, and then you have a group of people or even just one or two people that for some reason can't or won't take it. And they practice social distancing and they mask and they don't go out in public. And that's great until the delivery driver comes up to their door and sneezes on their package, right? So now you have a person that did all the things right on their side, but somebody made a bad decision and a mistake, and it cost them. So you think about that, and in the business side of the world, that's the equivalent of, a company that thinks I have a protected or isolated network. I don't have to worry about being at least as urgent with applying this service pack or this patch. I don't have to do as much work to make sure that I'm protecting myself. But then they have the employee that is walking through the parking lot and sees the USB drive on the ground and comes in and plugs it into their computer, or gets the phishing email with the PDF that for whatever reason skips all the layers of email security that you have in place, and they click it, and guess what? So there's a lot of parallels between the pandemic and cybersecurity in general. The bottom line being that one person or group of people can really cause anarchy for the entire company, organization, et cetera. So, you have the people that are careless, and then you have the negatively motivated. So now you have to kind of step back and say, do I have the insider threat protection from an organization standpoint that's going to help me to educate users or protect us from uneducated users rather? And do I have the ability to identify somebody that might be taking negative action on purpose against me, and can I stop that? It's so when stepping back, I've given you a very long-winded, convoluted answer to what's innovation in our space. It's finding ways to address the people problem. Again, I go back and I say cybersecurity is a people problem. More often than not, you can have an outstanding suite of tools. It only takes one click to undo all of that. It's so scary. The innovation is going to be how do we better align our people's capabilities and understanding with the risks of our business, and ensure that we're taking the appropriate steps to protect them and ourselves and our business's reputation.
Okay, thank you. And you kind of outlined and explained to the audience what is the information security is a tiered approach kind of methodology that we've been talking about for like 20 years now. So it doesn't matter that it's not enough that you just solve the one problem of education, as you said, because it's not enough, because there will always be that specific individual that will not abide by the rules, and then you'll need to add another layer of protection of you need to put controls in place, just for that case that they won't choose to deploy the patch or whatever it is. So
Right.
but very educational. Thank you. Put yourself in the shoes of a vendor just for a moment. What is it that you think you would like when engaging with a new customer?
I mean, the advice I would give them is to think about that interaction more along the lines of a romantic relationship as opposed to a sales pitch. And so if you think about it in those terms, the salesperson's thinking, here's a company I want to do business with. Is the best approach for me to contact them on social media? Should I send them a text? Should I call them? Should I call them multiple times? Should I send them multiple emails? Should I spam them? But most all of those people would be in a romantic relationship considered a creep. And nobody wants to be harassed and chased down and so on. You're not going to make many friends if you take that approach. So, while I'm not a salesman and I'm not trying to teach a salesman how to do anything, what I would say to a vendor is, treat it more like a courtship. Introduce yourself. Let's be friends first. Let's talk about, what you have to offer and how it might benefit me, and let that mature. Just because it's a great idea doesn't mean it aligns with the recipient's budget cycle, and it doesn't mean that that it's a great fit for their environment. But if you do have the time to work through that and establish a relationship, if nothing else, it might be something that, hey, I don't need that, but I know 4 colleagues that are looking for the solution that you're talking about, and I can introduce you, and maybe you develop 4 great relationships over there. So it's become almost comical for a lot of vendors how they approach people. And one of the common practices I see is somebody will send a note with no context, just, hey, I'm in threat space X. Let me get 30 minutes on your calendar next Thursday and we'll talk about it. I don't know what product you have. You don't, and it's pretty clear it's a form letter. They don't even know that they're dealing with a nonprofit, or if they're dealing with, healthcare. It's just a spam email. And the same way as you might not, I don't think it's a good idea to go up if you're attempting to get a date and just immediately say, hey, never met you, don't even know your name, let's go out to dinner. Yeah, the direct approach doesn't always work. It might work for some, but if you're not a supermodel, they're probably not too interested in what you have to say. So I mean, that's the analogy I would have, is treat it like a romantic relationship. Be respectful, be understanding of who you're dealing with, and work with them. Be honest, forthcoming, take it slow, and you might develop a great relationship out of it.
Okay, so in other words, build a relationship first, and then what is it that you as a potential customer is looking for in a vendor?
Well, I mean, I would say, I want a partner that really understands myself and my business and the challenges that we have, and I want them to feel like an extension of my team. I think the most critical characteristic of a successful vendor is that they're prepared in the interactions that they have with you. I mean, time is valuable for both sides, and if you're going to take the time to set up a meeting and review service metrics, or go over a new product or offering that you might have, if it looks like the vendor is reading your statistics for the first time, or they're fumbling through the demo that they're doing, and nobody benefits from that. You have to come prepared, be ready, on both sides. Try to understand, as a customer, what do you want to get out of that interaction? What do they have that might solve a problem for you? And as a vendor, be the partner that your customer wants, and ensure that you're prepared when you come to that meeting and can really hit on the topics that are the big pain points for your customer.
Okay, thank you. And I know we've spoken a bit about mentors, and I know you mentioned you have a mentor right now. Are there any specific individuals or influential people that you look up to, or anyone that you wanted to mention here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that I have a personal relationship with any of the people that I mentioned. I'll spare my mentor's name. I'm not sure if he would want me to share it or not. But from a content consumption standpoint, Ed Amoroso has a lot of great information. He also has some education modules out on a couple of different learning platforms that I think are great for risk and security practitioners. And then someone that's not necessarily cybersecurity centric, but I really like to follow, is Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He has a lot of very practical advice about, he's more of an entrepreneur, but he really helps you to put things in perspective and maintain focus. So I like his content as well. I'd say those are two, but there's great stuff everywhere. Yeah. You can find a lot of great content out there. Again, like we mentioned before, find what you're passionate about, and you can find a few sites where it really, really provides some good content.
Okay, thanks. What's the best way to connect with you online, like vendors, listeners, colleagues?
Yeah, I would say, start with LinkedIn. I generally am pretty responsive there, so I try to check that every day or two, and can make a connection there and move forward after the introduction.
Okay, so just to clarify, calling you on your mobile is a no-no, right?
Well, I'm the idiot that always answers, so
I never answer. It's like since I moved to the US 3 years ago,
Yeah.
I don't answer my phone because it's 95% spam.
I'm the exact opposite. Somebody may have a great opportunity to extend my car warranty or restore my access to my credit card. It can't pass up those calls.
Yeah, for sure. Final question before we can wrap this up. If money was never an issue, what would you do with your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'll avoid saying what I would do employment-wise because I still have a passion for cybersecurity, and obviously I would follow that. But if I just had money and was going to retire and do whatever I wanted, it would all be centered around travel. I love to experience new cultures, new people, experiences, and see new places. So I would definitely do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. What was the best country or the most interesting location you were in?
Man, it's hard to say. Everything.
Well,
even if you just narrow it down to
most interesting. Okay.
Most interesting. Even that's difficult. Yeah, I really like Italy, but it's so funny because Rome has a completely different feel than
the rest of
Venice,
yeah.
And Venice has a completely different feel than every place in the world, quite frankly. But not a huge fan of Venice necessarily. But Italy as a whole has, there's the mountain regions with great wine, and the people there are much more relaxed and almost like a different country than the people in Rome. And Cinque Terre, along the coast is beautiful, and the people there, laid back, but there's still a sense of urgency. It's really compact and a lot of tourists and so on. So, I really like Italy. I like most of Europe. I've been a lot of places. I'm fortunate that I've done a lot of traveling, but I can find something good to say about every place that I've been.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And I think with that, I'll let you have back some of your time. I do appreciate you jumping on this podcast today. Enjoy the talk, and hopeful that your insights would resonate with some of our listeners.
I hope so. I hope I didn't come off as a complete moron, but yeah.
No, that wasn't the case. And one thing that you've done that no one else has done is compare the pandemic to like a new patch. That type of comparison was new. So definitely we got something new here. Good.
Well, I hope people don't start massacring me and thinking I'm taking a stand on whether or not they should get vaccinated. It's more just I see a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
See a lot of parallels between how that's handled and how people treat a cybersecurity issue.
Look, I completely agree on a personal note, I have to say, I don't feel that anybody should be embarrassed to just tell their honest opinion. And for me, I can say it out loud. I'm pro-vaccines. Yeah, and on a personal note, my father contracted polio when he was a year and a half old, because they didn't have the vaccine back there in Turkey, where he grew up in. So for me, I mean, if there's a vaccine, I'll take it.
Right.
Yeah. But in any case, yeah, I'm not ashamed to say my opinion here. So thank you for that again, Andrew. And enjoy the talk. And I guess enjoy the weekend.
You too. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.